Okay, hello everybody, and it's the moment you all been waiting for, the 2011 hurricane season predictions and outlook. This is Derek Sibley, and I'll be with you here for the next couple of minutes to discuss the Stormtopias.com tropical season outlook for this year for 2011. And once again, this year is expected to be well above normal. We are still in the active era starting from 1995 and still lasting up till now. And as you can see here, another active hurricane season is predicted. We are calling for 14 named storms to form this year, 8 of them becoming hurricanes, and 4 of them becoming major hurricanes. Now I'm going to explain what this all means here coming up, and we'll go ahead and take a look on that right now. First of all, these are the sea surface temperature anomalies, and what I mean by anomalies is that either the ocean temperatures at surface are either warmer than normal, cooler than normal, or just at average/normal. And right now we are focusing on the equatorial Pacific, where the Enzo always lies, out here in the equatorial Pacific right here, and we are currently at a weak La Nina event. That is a weak La Nina, and the reason for that is because we still have cooler waters off here towards the west, a little bit warmer waters off here towards the east. And as long as this pattern persists of cooler water towards the west, this all means that we are still in a weak La Nina. We were at a moderate to strong La Nina for last year's hurricane season, and ever since that formed from last year, from 2010, it's still continuing to weaken as of right now, and still warmer waters are occurring off the western coast of South America, and it's actually spreading its way off towards the west. But this is typical for this time of year for a La Nina to weaken. That mostly happens during the springtime, and what really controls it is a ridge of high pressure towards the north, causes a westerly flow out here, and that kicks up the trade winds to cool the seas of the surface over here, and actually make the waters a little bit cooler. But now this high is slided off towards a little bit more towards the left. The left of the screen, but more towards the west, as I should say, and that's allowing for the waters out here in the eastern Pacific to warm up a little bit. And of course, also we are getting into that time of year where the sun angle gets higher and higher, and not only land mass warms up, but the ocean temperatures actually warm up, especially on here on the surface. So it's not unusual to see the La Nina weaken during the springtime. Alright, let's go a little bit deeper here into the surface, and what you're looking at here on your screen is the equatorial sea surface. Actually, not the sea surface, but these are the equatorial temperature anomalies going well below the surface of the ocean. And again, as I said here, going deeper down the ocean, so this goes all the way down to 450 meters, so that's very, very deep. But you could see here that the warmer waters here off the western coast of South America are spawning right here. These are the warmer temperatures that are well below the surface of the ocean. That map that I just showed you with the sea surface temperatures that are warming up there along the coast, these are the temperatures just below that surface area right down here, going from around 50 meters all the way down toward about, I would say, 120 meters or so. That's it right there. Now we also have, going a little bit further west, that water that's warming up going in towards the western Pacific basin as well is also located over here. Now this is the main area that we're going to have to really, really pay attention to, because if this warm water up here comes up towards the surface and allows the surface to warm from this warm water well below it, that could be leaning toward a more El Nino hurricane season coming up. But I don't think that's likely, because what we're seeing right now, these are not really strong high temperatures of water down here. This is more neutral right now, what we're seeing right now, and the forecasters over at NOAA and all of them are saying that we're probably going to be seeing a neutral hurricane season starting in June, but I think we could be neutral actually right now with these conditions persisting. So far over the last few months, we're seeing that these temperatures over here are actually warming up, and then they die back down again, something like that, and they warm back up and die back down. And I keep telling people, well, this is probably what we're expecting for this hurricane season, is the ocean temperatures to warm up and then warm back down again. So it all depends on what the trade winds are doing and what they want to do. And speaking of trade winds, I have the map right here, and this is basically your main control of Enzo. And what I mean by that is that you could see here out here in the Eastern Pacific, we got easterly winds out here. I don't know if you can really see those wind barbs on your screen, but they are pointing east, and as long as that persists, that's going to remain cooler water out there. Now you can actually see here the ridge of high pressure that I was talking about earlier is actually set up here well to the north and west as it's right here, and that's causing a little bit of westerly winds over here, and that's a little bit cooling off the surface as well. But more easterly winds kick in, that's going to allow it for it to warm up a little bit more. And then the cooler water is over here. Actually, no, that's the warmer water as well back towards the south, and the cooler water is still way up here, leaning on its way towards becoming neutral. Alright, so what are the chances of us seeing an El Nino hurricane season or a neutral hurricane season? Well, the chances of a neutral hurricane season, I can tell you right now, are much more higher than an El Nino season. As we head out through the hurricane season, let's start from April going all the way up towards November, where we hit the end of the hurricane season. You can see here this green bar here is the bar for the chance of neutral Enzo conditions occurring for this year's season, and you can see here that remains a 50-50 shot of that occurring. And what are the chances of El Nino? Well below the average, just below 25% chance of becoming an El Nino hurricane season for throughout this whole year. Not just the hurricane season, but just this whole year as well. And the La Nina is just about the same, around 25% chance of it becoming a La Nina hurricane season again, or just staying at a weak La Nina. So again, the chances are still relatively good for a neutral hurricane season to occur. Alright, now let's talk about the sea surface temperatures going out these next couple of months leading into the hurricane season. And this is going from April, the rest of this month, into May, and then eventually into June here. And we're going to be focusing on here in the Eastern Pacific Basin, where conditions are starting to warm up a little bit, on its way to a warm Enzo condition out there. But we're going to mainly focus on the Atlantic Basin out here, where the sea surface temperatures this year are expected to be about average. And that's a little bit concerning for a hurricane season to have neutral conditions for the Eastern Pacific, because that's just one thing that would help the Atlantic hurricane season to get active. And then you have average sea surface temperatures for most of the Atlantic Basin. So what does average sea surface temperatures mean? Well, usually you could get a ridge of high pressure building over most of the Atlantic Basin to dominate it, and that causes strongerly trade winds down here to blow off the sea surface temperatures a little bit. That's why you're not seeing them really deeply in red or orange like we have up here towards the north. And the reason for that is because when the high is placed down here, you get more, of course, ridging, and then the trade winds blow off the tops of the water. It's kind of like a coffee cup. If you get a hot cup of coffee and you blow into it, it's going to blow off eventually, and that's what this ridge would be doing. On the northern end of that ridge, there's weaker trade winds allowing for more water to warm up here towards the north. So that's a little interesting. And then off the west coast of Africa, still about average, and then go a little bit further west of that, water temperature expected to remain above average going out these next 3 months. Okay, so now as we head out through June, July, and August, this is when we get to the hurricane season. You can see here that the temperatures across all the Atlantic Basin are at average temperatures. That's what they are expecting. Again, the warmer water up here well to the north, and if that were to happen, we actually might see some ice melt up in Greenland this year, so we'll have to be monitoring that. But the main focus is on the hurricane season, and you can see out here in the Eastern Pacific, neutral conditions have finally arrived. Atlantic Basin is relatively average for sea surface temperatures, and again, what I said with that ridge of high pressure building, that could be a sign that we could see a stronger ridge this year, allowing more storms to curve either into the Gulf states or maybe into the southeast United States, possibly track into the Caribbean. The main point is we don't know where storms are going to go, and I hate using analog years to determine what tracks we're going to see, because it's impossible to say that. But pretty much the the whole hurricane zone up and down the East Coast and then going into the Gulf of Mexico states really need to keep an eye on this year's hurricane season, and then all the Caribbean as well. Basically everybody in the hurricane zone needs to keep a very close eye on this season, because I do think that we'll see more ridges of high pressure building, allowing for more southerly and westerly tracts, which could have a impact on the hurricane areas. Alright, so let's go to our next map here, and what you're looking at here is the sea level pressure anomalies. Again, the same thing with sea surface temperature anomalies. The anomalies means that this is either above normal pressure, below normal pressure, or just average pressure. And now I do have evidence to back up this, is that with the ridges of high pressure building, this is my evidence pretty much, is that you can see here these yellows here indicate rising air pressures. And we are in a positive NAO, positive North Atlantic oscillation, which means that you would see more ridges of high pressure building off the eastern coast of the United States, and more troughiness are back off this way. That's why you're seeing low pressures out here. Now with the high pressure off here, obviously that's a westerly flow. Now that's a concern for the hurricane season if that were to continue. Lower pressures out here in the MDR region. Is that concerning just because there's higher pressures off here, low pressures over here? Well, lower pressures out here off the west coast of Africa and the main development region, that would indicate that the tropical waves that spawn off the west coast of Africa and move their way west, it's going to have a pretty favorable environment to work in. If the wind shear cooperates, the sea surface temperatures cooperates, which we think they will, and the pressure cooperates, which we think it will as well, because I'll show you the European model going out the next few months in the hurricane season, which shows this. All the ingredients will be coming together for an active hurricane season. If the west coast of Africa is really busy this year with the tropical waves, they got a big environment to play a big role in, and then we'll have to watch out to see if they go further west with the ridges of high pressure building off the east coast of the United States. So something to keep in mind for this year's hurricane season. It looks to be really interesting this year, I think, so far, even though we are in April. Now here are the European model, or the ECMWF seasonal forecast for the seasonal pressure anomalies. And this is only going out this month. For the rest of this month, you can see here that the pressures in the eastern Atlantic and the main development region of the tropics remain relatively low for pressure, and that's a concern for the tropical waves to really growth in intensity. Even the west coast of Africa, where they originate, pressures would favor development of waves coming off there as well. Higher pressures again in the Gulf of Mexico and eastern coast of the United States. Now let's go further in time. Let's go to 2 months, and you can see here how the pressures really start to actually take a toll. The pressures actually go a little bit lower. The lower pressures off here go a little bit lower. Still remaining the same thing off here, off the west coast of Africa, still higher pressures over here. Now as we head out through time, you'll see how the pressures actually really change dramatically. 3 months in advance, you could see here the pressures here off the west coast of Africa and the main development region are still relatively low, and the pressures off the West African coast and where the tropical waves originate, that's a main concern, because the waves that develop over here would have low pressures to work with, allowing them to becoming stronger before they move off the coast. And sometimes they can die down, sometimes they can work back up again when they've come off the coast of Africa, getting used to the new atmospheric environment. And that's going to have a big concern for the main development region this year, is lower pressure supporting them if the other air pressure, if the other atmospheric conditions persist. And you can see here how still good amount of increasing pressure off here, but the European model surprisingly is actually saying that the pressures are going to be neutral for off the Gulf of Mexico and eastern sections of the United States, and the main development region off here is still going to be quite low for pressures. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens going out through this year's hurricane season, to whether the pressures are going to stay this way, or we're going to see higher pressures off the east coast of the United States according to the European model, because again, the European model, it's a very good model. It's good on tropical meteorology forecasting. I haven't really tested it out yet with pressure anomaly forecasting, so this is my first year using this for the pressure anomaly forecast. So we're going to see and how this trends out. Bottom line here for this year's hurricane season, I'll get back to the map here. 14 storms, 8 hurricanes, 4 major hurricanes being forecasted. Basically, the bottom line is to be prepared up and down the eastern coast of the United States, Gulf of Mexico, and the rest of the hurricane zone in the Caribbean. I do think that we're going to see a lot more landfalls, at least more than last year's hurricane season. Obviously, last year had a La Nina set up, and then you get more recurvatures this year. A neutral hurricane season do have history of having more landfalls, especially on the U.S. coast. All right, that's about it for now, and take care, everyone.